I remember my first day at a construction site when the project manager asked me to casually have a look at the MIR log and have it updated. I looked at him with empty eyes because I didn't have the slightest clue of what he needed, what he wanted. It took me a few humble, awkward conversations around the site office to understand what exactly he needed. If you are new or newish to the world of construction, is it often the case that you find yourself in discussions when people use terms like MIR, WIR, RFI, VO, etc., and you may or may not have heard these terms and you are not sure what exactly these mean? But don't worry, because by the end of this video, you will have clarity on most, if not all of these terms. Be it the contract stuff, the project management stuff, or the site stuff. So that when you are in a discussion and these terms are thrown around, you do not feel like an outsider. Let's get started. The first thing we need to look at is what the contract agreement is. The contract agreement is basically a foundational document that outlines the terms and conditions of the project. The contract agreement is a document that basically sets the stage for the entire project. This document outlines how the project will be carried out, when the project will be carried out, by whom the project will be carried out, etc., etc. In addition to these terms and conditions, there are various other documents that form part of the contract. For example, the first one is the Bill of Quantities, popularly known as the BOQ. The BOQ is a comprehensive list of all the materials, specs, labor, etc., that is meant to be utilized in the project. This document provides the contractors a clear basis for pricing the project, because in this document it is outlined that what is required, how many pieces or units of this item are required, etc. In this BOQ, for example, there is an item, concrete. Now, concrete is of various types. How exactly do we know what type of concrete is to be used? This takes us to the next document, that is called the specifications or specs of the project. In this document, there are detailed descriptions of materials, workmanship, and the standards required for the project, so that uniformity is ensured and the quality is also ensured. The next important part of the contract is the payment terms. The payment terms specify how and when payments will be made to contractors, so that financial transparency is maintained throughout the project. Another term that is commonly used and you might have heard is the tender bond or the bid bond. A tender bond is basically a financial guarantee that we contractors provide along with our bids. This demonstrates our commitment to the project and also covers the client or the employer against any losses if I as a contractor fail to fulfill my obligations during the tender. So once the project is awarded, then different types of bonds are required. First is the performance bond. The performance bond is basically a guarantee, once again provided by us contractors, that we will perform the works as required under the contract. So that if during the execution stage I as a contractor fail to fulfill my obligations, the employer can at least be compensated by the bank using this performance bond. And I will have to obviously pay for it as a contractor. Once works start, obviously, for example, this is a $100 million project. And initially I will need some money to get the project started as a contractor. So there is something called an advance payment that is made to the contractor. It is generally 10% of the contract value. This money helps the contractor in procuring the initial materials for the project and also helps with mobilization of materials, plant, etc. Now, the employer has given us, for example, in this case, $10 million as advance payment. What if I just, as a contractor, disappear and do not show up? So in this case, to secure himself, the employer asks us to submit an advance payment guarantee. Once again, this is a document provided by our bank to the employer, so that in case I am not able to continue with the project and not able to return the advance payment, the employer is safe because he can get the bank to give him the money back. Once execution starts, an important consideration is the drawings, because there are lots of different types of drawings that circulate around the project site. The most important one being the issued for construction or the IFC drawings. So these are drawings that are officially released by the client for executing the works. There might be drawings for information issued earlier, but you cannot use those drawings to execute. So you should always ensure that the drawings that you are using for execution are IFC drawings. Now, once you have these IFC drawings issued to you, you as a contractor will need to produce something called a shop drawing. Shop drawings are basically detailed drawings that show how various components of the project will be fabricated and installed. These are as detailed as they can possibly get. And these shop drawings form a clear guideline to the construction workers and your engineers on site. Another important document that comes up when the project starts is the program of works. So your planning engineer will create a detailed outline, a detailed schedule of when and how the works will be executed at site. This program is then submitted to the consultant for approval and becomes a clear guideline for when and how things will happen on site during the entire length of the project. Now, as the project execution starts, it is important for the consultant and the client to know what exactly is happening on the project. Are we on track or no? So for this purpose, you as a contractor are required to submit something called a progress report. Progress report is basically a regular update on the status of the project. In this report, the contractor highlights what the exact status of the project is, what the issues faced are, what the challenges faced are, what the next few weeks look like in the project, etc., etc. Now, as project is ongoing, your materials start to come into the site. And it is important for the consultant and the client to know that the materials that you are supplying are in line with the bill of quantities and the project specifications. For this purpose, when the materials get delivered to the site, you as a contractor raise something called a material inspection request, or an MIR. This MIR is submitted so that the consultant can come and verify that the materials that we have supplied are in line with the project specs and the bill of quantities. Also, when the material does get supplied to the site, you will as a contractor sign something called a material delivery note. This document is also important because when you are submitting your request for payments, you will need to prove that these materials are actually on site. So this material delivery note is of great help in helping you substantiate what materials have come in and accordingly claim your payments. Similarly to material inspection requests, so once you carry out the works, you will need the consultant to come and verify that the actual performance of the work is also in line with the project requirements. For this purpose, you submit something called a WIR, or a work inspection request. So the consultant will come in and verify and sign off on your executed works. This document is also very useful in helping you substantiate and claim your payments. Now, as you are executing, for example, you find something in the IFC drawings that you don't understand, or there is some information missing and you need some sort of clarification from the client or the consultant. This is not done over WhatsApp messages. This is done formally using something called a RFI, or request for information. So this is a document wherein you submit your exact required clarifications, you submit your drawings and highlight in the drawings what the issue are, what the discrepancy is, so that the consultant can review this and get back to you with all the clarifications that you need. Now, all of these MIRs, WIRs, RFIs, there are hundreds and hundreds of them that happen during the course of a project, and it is very important to document them. To do this, we use simple Excel sheets that we call logs. So there is an MIR log, there is a WIR log, there is an RFI log, and many other logs that are maintained throughout the course of the project. These logs are very, very important because, like I said, there are many material inspection requests that you submit. And for example, you submitted 100 and the consultant has inspected around 90. So it is very difficult to keep a track of which inspections were carried out and which were not. So that's where these logs come handy, and they help ease and document the project in a very, very efficient way. Now, as a contractor, as you progress, you will obviously need the client to pay you for your works. So that's when you submit something called a payment application. So payment application is basically a list of works you have completed, their contractual value, and proof of execution, the fact that these works have actually been executed. So as substantiation, you will attach the MIRs, the WIRs, etc., etc. The consultant and the client will then review this payment application, and you as a contractor will get paid periodically. Now, again, during execution, for example, the employer asks you to carry out works that are not in your contract, but he feels they are required for the project. So in this case, you as a contractor will submit a request for variation, or a variation order request. So these are basically formal requests that come from us requesting the employer to issue officially that something has changed in the specifications, or the new project requirements have surfaced, etc., etc. So once this request is issued formally, only then do you as a contractor execute these works, because you will obviously need some sort of documentation to prove that this is part of your scope, and you will obviously need to get paid for it. So this formal documentation of variation orders is very, very important. Now again, during project execution, for example, something happens, a drawing is not issued in time, or your approvals don't come in time. So in this case, you as a contractor will write letters called notices of delay to the employer or the consultant. So these notices of delay are basically formal notifications that go out to project stakeholders, informing them of potential changes or delays to the project timeline or any other potential consequences under the contract. The notifications of delay then lead us to something called extension of time. So extension of time is once again a formal request submitted by you as a contractor with all the necessary documentation, requesting the employer or the consultant to grant you more time to execute the works because of the delays that were beyond your control. Associated with this extension of time is something called a prolongation cost. So when you are involved in the project as a contractor for longer than you were supposed to be, you will definitely incur some additional costs. So these costs are called the prolongation costs that you claim as part of your extension of time to compensate you for additional time that you need to spend on the project. So all of this happens and you have completed all the works related to the project under the contract. So then you request the employer for something called a taking over certificate. So this certificate is basically a formal acknowledgement by the employer that you as the contractor have completed all your scope of works under the contract agreement. This certificate is a very important contractual document because it triggers your final payment. Now, as part of your project closeout, you are required to submit a few more documents as a contractor. The first document is the as-built drawings. So during the course of the project, there might have been some changes to the original IFC drawings which are documented in the shop drawings. So you as a contractor will have to prepare as-built drawings showing exactly how the project was executed, which door is located where, which window is located where, etc., accurate to the millimeter, so that when 5 years down the line you are not involved in the project and there is some other company doing the maintenance of the project, for example, they can look at these as-built drawings and exactly know what is where. Another important thing that you need to submit at this stage is the warranties. So under your contract, if you are required to provide warranties for certain equipment that you have supplied and installed in the project, these warranties should also be submitted at this stage of the project to the consultant or the employer. Another important document that you are required to submit as part of your project closeout is the operations and maintenance manuals. For example, you have installed the air conditioning system in the project, and 5 years down the line you are not involved in the project anymore and somebody needs to know what exactly was installed and how exactly the maintenance and the repair of this is to be carried out. So these documents are submitted by you and these form a clear guideline to whoever is doing the maintenance of the project eventually, because that will not be you. So once again, this is another document that is required to be submitted as part of your project closeout. Another term you might have heard is retention. Retention is basically a sum of money that the employer withholds. For example, like we said, the contract, for example, is 100 million. The employer will hold on to usually 5% of the contract sum as retention for usually 1 more year after the project completion. So once you have your taking over certificate, you will not get all your money as a contractor. You will only get 95% of the contract sum. This 5% is normally returned after 1 year because this also serves as some sort of guarantee to the employer that your works are up to the standard, so that should there be any issues to the works that you have carried out, the employer has some sort of guarantee. And once the 1 year period is elapsed and the employer is satisfied, that is when your retention is returned to you. The retention period normally starts from the date of the taking over certificate. I've tried to summarize all that I could in this little video. I'm sure I've not covered everything. I probably will do a follow-up video very soon wherein I'll cover things that I've missed. But I hope this was useful for you, and the next time you are in a project discussion and one of these terms surfaces, you will know what is happening and what's being spoken about. With that being said, that's all for this video. I will see you all in the next video. Until then, happy building.